Good evening, Fernwood. It is your New Year's baby Neil, and it's time for us to start the last 10 weeks of Mary Hartman. Mary Hartman. We are watching episode 276 today from April 25th, 1977. It was a really emotional week last week with some really devastating hits, so let's do an overview. The sinister specter floating over Fernwood is the Glorious Guardians of Good, a clandestine white hate group led by Vernon Bales along with Police Chief Tex. They have recruited most of the neighborhood into the group, though everyone believes that they are members of a social club. At the start of the week, Tom joined up with the GGG raid on a fictitious black militant arsenal that Vernon lied about. Tex lights Dewey's shack on fire, and Tom tries to stop him, with Vernon knocking him out and framing him for the crime. Mary Hartman has been heartbroken and lonely since Tom ran off to join the raid. She finds him in jail finally, and he says that he's innocent. And Mary is torn because her friend Dewey died in the fire. By the middle of the week, Mary is not visiting Tom anymore because she says it's too depressing. At home, Mary is also lonely and has been reaching out to members of her family to help her fill the gap left by the absence of Tom. And also, Mary held a memorial for her late friend Dewey. Martha Shumway has moved in with her daughter Kathy and Kathy's boyfriend Mac. Kathy thinks that 3 is a crowd, though Martha and Mac seem to be getting along pretty well watching a porn movie together. George has been feeling jealous of Martha and Mac spending time together, especially since he caught them in a compromising position, and Kathy is starting to wonder if anything is going on there too. Wanda Jeter has been jealous of the attention that her husband Merle has been paying to Mary Hartman, though she does understand that Mary is quite distressed by having her husband in jail, accused of murder. Merle offered Mary a job as assistant, though it seems like a ploy to get more time with her, and Mary took it because she needs to keep an income. Wanda has been somewhat more distant with Mary since then. And then finally, the Haggers, Loretta, and Charlie have taken in a wild child that they have found on their doorstep. Their week has been filled with trying to figure out how to raise it properly. We started last Friday's episode with Tex tormenting Tom about a story in the newspaper. He mentions that there's a new police officer coming in to handle Tom's case, and then remembers that Mary was someone that he appreciated when she was working at the factory, and this leads Tex to say that he will be paying Mary more attention. And that sets Tom off, and also Merle Jeter, who happened to be standing nearby. Tom is worried that while he is locked up in jail that someone will sweep Mary off of her feet, and then jokes that Merle wouldn't ride in on a white horse but on a tricycle. Merle asks Tom to sign a petition for his bid for presidency, and Tom takes this as absurd, but Tex is more than willing to put his ex on the line. Back home, Mary is trying to get through to Tom on the phone as she is visited by Merle, who is riding the tricycle that Tom mentioned. Mary is much more focused on reaching Tom and asks Merle to help her get through to him on the phone, and he says he will do it as long as Mary doesn't mention that Merle was involved. Mary is so excited that she blurts out thanks for Merle, and as soon as Tom hears that, he hangs up. At which point, Merle appeals to Mary's inner child and asks her to take a ride on the tricycle with him, and they ride around singing that hit song, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. Next door at the Haggers, Loretta has sought the help of a professor to get information about how to raise this child that she has taken in. The professor is excited to see such a healthy specimen and suggests that rather than being raised by wolves, this child was raised by Bigfoot. And then we are back in the jail where Charlie is visiting Tom, who is expressing his innocence completely. And Charlie says that he believes that Tom didn't do it, but also says that he would understand if Tom had done the murder. This sets Tom off, and Tex pulls him away, and Charlie asks Tex if Tex is doing as much as he can to work for Tom to get justice. Tex, of course, lies straight into Charlie's face and also mentions that special police officer who is coming in to handle the case. We end the episode with Tom working out his frustration as the door opens and we see a familiar face. And Tom looks into the eyes of the man who tried to come between him and Mary, Dennis Foley. And as I said, we are starting the last 10 weeks of Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. I expect we are up for some roller coasters. So, it's time to check our height and get on the ride.
Mary Hartman! Mary Hartman!
Tex, he's in pretty bad shape. Now, are you doing everything you can to take care of him now, Tex?
Well, hell yes, Charlie. I mean, we are bringing in a special cop on the force just to take care of him. Guy's real experienced.
Dennis Foley.
For a second there, I didn't think you'd remember me.
What the hell? Wait a minute. What the hell are you doing here, huh?
I'm on duty.
On duty? Well, you don't work here anymore. Hell, you haven't even lived here for over a year.
I'm back.
Why?
Well, let's just say I got tired of traveling.
Traveling where?
Just traveling.
Hey, Foley, you skip out of town and practically ruin my marriage, and then you help drive my wife to a nervous breakdown. Not to mention the fact that you run out of marrying my sister-in-law when she was pregnant, and now you come back to haunt me while I'm in jail. Jesus, Foley, your timing stinks.
Well, I never pretended it didn't. But I never pretended anything.
Well, nobody ever said you never said you weren't a louse. But look, a lot of people aren't going to forgive you for being lousy to them.
Some people do let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, well, not me. Not me.
Tom. I'm sorry about that. Really.
I thought you were a guy who never said he was sorry.
Not true. I felt a certain way about Mary, and because of it, I let things get out of control. I did things I really regret.
Why'd you come back here?
Because I'm ready to settle down. I've had enough excitement in the last year to last me a lifetime. And now I'm ready for a little peace. I mean, it took me a while to realize it, Tom, but I belong here.
Yeah, but of all the small towns and small jails in the whole wide world, why the hell did you have to pick mine, huh? Hey, I'm going to tell you something right now. You watch your step. Because I'm keeping my eye on you. Really. Even while I'm in here.
Have it your way. But no matter what, Tom, I do hope things work out all right for you. For Mary's sake, too.
Yeah, you stay away from her. You understand that, Foley? Unless you know what's good for you, you'll stay away from her. You hear that? Because if you don't, I will make you wish you never came back from wherever the hell you came back from.
I don't plan to see Mary at all. Honestly. You don't have anything to worry about.
You're damn right I don't!
I took the wrong door.
The hell I don't.
Come on, George, move your moo-moo, will ya?
Listen, what'd you call that kid again?
It's called a feral child.
Pearl child. And you expect me to buy the fact that little boy that you found there on your front doorstep was raised by that Bigfoot critter? Now, come on now, Charlie. It's my foot that was caught in that bear trap, not my brain.
Well, it's true enough. According to Fernwood's only expert, Dr. J. Stanley Maddock, the only expert in Fernwood on prime phenomenons like that, he was raised by Bigfoot.
Boy, I mean, that's really weird. And you say he laps up water and he eats raw meat and he runs around looking like an animal?
He doesn't look like an animal. He's a human being. He keeps looking better and better. The cleaner we get him, the better he looks.
Oh, I'm sure he's quite handsome.
Brothers?
What the hell is that?
George, what in the world are you wearing?
Well, you gentlemen are probably not aware, but this happens to be the official garb worn in the exalted office of Grand Misto. Now, I would like to get on with the meeting. Right. And as soon as you show your appreciation and courtesy to a man of my rank, we will.
George has always been ranking up for me.
All right. I am now calling the first meeting for the Save the Tom Hartman Committee. I will now have roll call. Charles Haggers.
Yeah?
Mac Slattery. Mac Slattery.
Yo!
All right. We now have a caucus. I would like the secretary to read the minutes of the last meeting.
We don't have a secretary.
Well, all right, then you be secretary. Just read the minutes.
Well, what about me?
All right, I'll make you assistant secretary. Will you read the minutes?
George, there ain't no minutes on account of this. It's the first meeting we have had. Now, will you just get on with it?
Oh, boy. You're walking a real thin line.
Now, come on, George, get on with it, will you? I mean, while we're talking here, Tom Hartman is languishing in a lonely jail cell, pining for his own sweet Mary, who's just eating her heart out for him.
Yeah. What we need to do is we need to get that boy a good lawyer.
Well, Vernon practically promised us all the GGG telethon money except for the 10% for the diseases, and that got stolen anyway. What we need to get him is a very good lawyer.
Gentlemen, I decide that we should get the most expensive man of law that we can find. Someone who knows all the loopholes and all the wereholes.
Well, last I heard, Mary was trying to get in touch with F. Lee.
F. Lee?
Bailey.
F. Lee Bailey, that bum, I wouldn't give him the sweat off of my brows. He blew that whole Hearst thing.
Well, come on, the problem is not getting a lawyer. The problem is getting Tom to accept the lawyer. He says he won't take anything at all from the GGG.
Yeah, to hear him tell it, you'd think that Texas and Vernon was responsible for killing Dewey. Now, that don't hardly seem sensible, does it?
No, it don't. That's what worries me. I mean, I like to believe Tom, but it just, I don't know. It just, especially when Vernon is the guy that created this whole committee to save Tom.
If you ask me, the whole thing is crazy.
I don't like to think it. I don't know what to think, but maybe what we ought to do is get him a doctor. Maybe that's the thing to do.
A psychiatrist?
It ain't a bad idea. When I was visiting him in jail the other day, he kept ranting and raving about how the GGG was evil and how he's going to get even with Texas and Vernon no matter how long it took. In my opinion, Tom is definitely in need of some help, mind-wise.
Oh, a psychiatrist? How much public humiliation does my family have to go through? First of all, my father-in-law is arrested for being a Fernwood flasher. My oldest daughter goes crackers on national television. My youngest daughter loses her baby in a laundromat. My wife is a kleptomaniac, amongst other things. I mean, it's bad enough to have a murder rap over Tom's head, but bringing in a head shrinker, how much shame can a man stand?
George, the only thing about it is that I'm afraid that if we don't get him a psychiatrist, maybe what we're going to need is an exorcist.
Hey, maybe we could prove that Tom was temporarily crazy on account of he's so upset about Dewey almost killing Mary.
And me?
And there ain't a jury in the state of Ohio that would not have sympathy for a poor, loving husband what was temporarily deranged.
Yeah.
Well, of course you know this is going to have a bad effect on Mary. Now, who's going to tell her?
Well, George, the secretary, and I think I can speak for the assistant secretary here, we will defer to the Grand Misto to inform all concerned parties about meeting decisions.
I think this is a procedure of the GGG which Vernon would not want ignored. Besides that, she's your daughter.
Technicalities. Nothing but technicalities. Couldn't we send her a telegram?
Tasha, Sarah Lee is a wonderful foodstuff. It's no wonder nobody don't like the woman. Great way to start a great day, right? You know, darling, now that we got our lives pretty well straightened out, I see us riding that train right to the White House. I think them campaign funds we raised on the telethon are going to be a key thing here. I think that's like a dream come true. At first, you know, I had a little apprehension about the whole thing, but Wanda, do you mind if I ask what the hell you're thinking about there? I'm sitting here telling you about my dream. Now, what are you thinking about?
Merle, I'm terribly sorry. I wasn't listening. I must have been thinking about something else. It wasn't important.
Well, would you mind taking your spoon out of your cup there and settling that on the saucer where it belongs, like a lady? There's a couple of things I'd like to talk over with you, if you don't mind, okay?
Sure, of course.
Huh? Nothing too important, just like my plans for being president in 1980, like when I should start my campaign. Should I do it now or should I wait? Would you like to comment on that?
Oh, sure. I'd love to comment on it. Well, let's see now. Jimmy Carter worked on his about 3 years, so...
Right.
Well, maybe you should get started, yeah. Of course, he's pretty popular right now, but, you know, in 6 months he could blow it. Happens all the time. No, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't start right away.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking, see. To me, I could kick it off by going on television and, you know, denying all the rumors that I am going to be a candidate in 1980. Meanwhile, I don't know how that grabs you, but you're not listening to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Merle. I did it again. I'm not listening.
That's what I said.
Oh.
Wanda, what could you possibly be contemplating here that's more interesting than listening to your husband's plans to be the president of the country? I mean, what is you got something fascinating going on in that coffee cup there? What is
Merle,
it?
look, I really am terribly sorry. It's just that, well, I just can't help thinking about Tom Hartman languishing away in that jail cell.
Tom Hartman?
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, this is getting amazing to me. You know, I mean, all I hear about is Tom Hartman. I mean, everybody seems to forget that he set fire to the only black guy we've got going for us here in Fernwood. And he was a wonderful person. He was an outstanding janitor and a wonderful, wonderful person at their, what's his name?
Dewey.
Right. I mean, don't tell me you're sitting there thinking about Tom Hartman or Huey or anything else that doesn't relate directly to you. Now, this is starting to concern me here, Wanda. And I'm serious. No, don't even think about saying anything here. I don't understand. I mean, if you have any respect at all for the truth and the honesty that inherent in our marriage here, you're going to tell me what's bothering you. Hey, what is it, kid? Come on, we've been through some terrible trouble together, but we always come out of it. We always talk about it. Can't you tell me about it at all?
No.
Okay, no holes. Salvation Army. Okay. One of Heather's socks. Right. Oh! Now this might be very nice for Loretta's little wild child. Of course, it doesn't exactly really look like him or feel like him. But they don't take him out that much anyway, so he could use it like as a casual at-home thing. Bigfoot kid. Okay, now. Little t-shirt. Let's see. Salvation Army.
Good morning, Mary.
Oh, hi, Dad. Listen, Dad, let me ask you a question.
Yeah?
How do you think Loretta's wild child would like these?
Well, I don't know. He'd probably get along better, in a cage or something like that. Anyway, what do you open up, a Salvation clinic or something? What is all this?
No, I was just keeping busy. See, last week, Pa, in Reader's Digest, I read an article that said, so you've wasted your life.
You're a good girl, Mary. You know that?
Thank you, Dad.
And that's the most important thing in life.
Thanks. Think Tom thinks I'm good?
Oh, he knows that.
Yeah? Think Tom's a happy person?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's going to be a lot happier once he gets that murder rap off his shoulders, too. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting last night to help Tom Hartmann committee.
Uh-huh.
We figured something out.
Really?
Yeah.
What, you mean like a party to cheer him up?
We are going to line up a real first-class, sharp attorney.
You know, that just reminds me, I really should call that Flea Bailey again. Because although he might not be interested in taking on the case, he might enjoy a good party.
No, wait a minute. Now, we decided to call in somebody else first, you see.
Oh, who? Louis Nizer? Melvin Belli?
No. What we thought before we get a lawyer, we might try to get Tom a psychiatrist.
A psychiatrist? At a party? Where's your humor? I mean, the man is up for murder. That's your idea of a tickle?
Yeah, well, we're not planning on a party necessary for Tom just yet. We ought to wait on that for a little while, honey.
Why?
Because I don't think Tom's going to be home for a while.
Well, what do you mean? What? You don't think he's guilty, do you?
Oh, of course not, but let's face it. Things don't look too good.
They don't? I didn't know that. I swear I didn't know that. And now you want to see a psychiatrist? You don't think he's crazy, do you?
No. It's just a strategy they're working on. We figured that if a head shrinker comes in there, whatever he says is going to make Tom's sentence a little less than what it could possibly be.
I don't believe it's a sentence. You're talking as if he's already tried and convicted. I mean, as far as I knew, Tom was going to be home real soon. Now you're saying that he could be there like years. Well, I mean, I don't have years. I really don't have years.
I know, baby. Listen, you're probably right and I'm probably wrong, but remember I told you for weeks not to count on a happy ending when I went to see Snow White? Well, I'm your father, and I once in a while I'm a little overprotective. I just don't want to see you disappointed is all.
Well, that's what Merle said to me. Tom is not going to like the idea of seeing a psychiatrist. I mean, I can tell you that. I mean, he's going to misunderstand. He's going to think that we don't believe in him. I mean, he has been so touchy ever since they arrested him for murder.
Morning.
Good morning. Oh, Heather, listen, sweetheart. Do you have a little pair of pants that you think would go with this top to make a nice little outfit? I'm trying to find a little outfit for Loretta's wild child for Daddy's homecoming party.
Listen, by the time Daddy gets home, that kid will be wearing a three-piece vest and suit and know how to button it.
That long.
I feel like today's episode is a weird meditation on time. There's a few mentions of how much time is left, and also, I am thinking that at this point, the series is finite. And I understand that it continues with Forever Fernwood, which we really don't have access to, but I don't know if they knew that that was in the works just yet. I don't know what they were thinking about. But time seems to be the topic. And we jump back some time with Tom and Dennis meeting again, and we don't know where Dennis has been, but he's been on some adventures and wants to come back somewhere quiet. And Tom is, of course, angry to see him and says that Dennis should stay away from Mary. And Dennis says that he's not planning to see Mary at all. And I think that's maybe a bit much to ask, or not much to ask, but a bit much to expect, considering that they live in a very small town. But at least as far as intent, Dennis is not intending to approach Mary. However, it does seem to tie into Tom's general fear of Mary getting swept away by someone. And that leaves me with some feelings, which I don't know if I can sort. In the comments, we have talked about the two big ships in this show, and that would be Tom and Mary and Dennis. And people fall into those camps, right? Because in season 1, you could sort of assume that Tom was completely ignoring Mary's needs and that Dennis was providing something that she needed. On the other hand, I personally feel like their relationship has some love at the core and lots of problems, which we explored so much in season 1 and less so in this season. The problems between Tom and Mary, I don't know if they run quite as deep, but there are certain point of view problems. And I feel like there was a moment where Tom could have redeemed himself in the relationship when he realized that he was standing in Mary's way during that dream sequence a couple months ago. But for now, all Tom can do is wait. And then we're there with the GGG members, or at least George and Charlie and Mac, who are sort of the ones who think that they're in the social club, right? They don't know anything about the racist agenda of Vernon and Tex, and how Vernon and Tex are specifically framing Tom for this murder. Some of me thought last week that George was appointed to the position of Grand Misto specifically because Vernon thinks that he won't be able to get anything done. Which could make sense, but I think George actually does care in this case. And the thought of calling out to a lawyer for Tom, which he certainly needs, he really does need a lawyer. The thought was bandied about to call out to F. Lee Bailey, who was a famous lawyer who, at that time of 1970s, had recently defended Patty Hearst in her trial. She did end up going to jail, though it seems like, according to the Wikipedia that I read, that F. Lee Bailey at least kept her from getting a death sentence. And later she was pardoned, essentially, by 2000. F. Lee Bailey was a really high-profile lawyer who would later go on to be on the defense team of O.J. Simpson during his murder trial, which, well, I guess they won that one. But I don't know how good I feel about that. Then the meeting switches gears, though, because rather than getting a lawyer, they decide that getting Tom a psychiatrist would be a good idea. And I think both things are good, right? I think that Tom needs a lawyer, needs legal counsel. He also has been through some really traumatic stress and could use someone to talk through this. But the thing that was going through my mind with this scene, right, this perspective, which is Charlie and Mac and George talking about it, was that they all believed Vernon. And that meant that Tom must be crazy. And this means to me that, I know we've talked about gaslighting a bit over the last few months, but this means to me that Charlie and Mac and George are completely gaslit here, right? They don't believe that they are going crazy, but they believe that a friend of theirs is going crazy, and that is the abusive behavior of Vernon, which is intentionally abusive. And then we see a quiet scene between Merle and Wanda. Well, it starts quiet, at least, with Merle musing on the idea of starting a run for the presidency, which he mentioned last week, and it has been on the plate before. And Wanda is completely distracted. And she says at first that she's distracted because of Tom, but Merle sees through that because, well, they understand each other a little bit better than I do. So Merle sees through that, and no, it's not Tom that Wanda is distracted by. But then when Merle asks again, Wanda won't tell him. So this becomes a new mystery for us. Why is Wanda distracted in this case? What is she thinking about? At this point, we can only speculate, and I generally refuse to speculate. So I have no idea, and I'm waiting to find out. And then we end the episode with Mary sorting clothes for Goodwill or To Be Rags or for Loretta's Bigfoot child. I think it's sweet that Mary's giving all these things away. That's fine, and also making space for new clothes and stuff. Then George shows up and reveals to Mary the plan from the 3 lower members of the GGG that they would bring him a psychiatrist. They would bring Tom a psychiatrist. And Mary's response is understandable, that in this case, Tom would take that as a thought that he is crazy, or that he is perceived as crazy. And that makes sense to me. And as I said, this was an episode that seemed to muse on time a little bit, that Mary apparently didn't realize how difficult Tom's time in jail would be and how long it would be. Mary seemed to be under the impression, at least by the words that she said, that Tom would be out of jail tomorrow for this murder accusation, which is really not how murder accusations tend to work. And then Heather comes down and puts the nail in the coffin, and really, she sees it exactly how most of us should see it, that Tom will probably be locked away for a long, 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 long time. So yeah, I feel a lot of different emotions churning kind of in my gut right now. I haven't quite sorted them, and I figure that your feelings may help me put some context to the things I'm feeling. So thank you so much for watching with me. Thank you so much for leaving your thoughts, feelings, and impressions down in the comments. And thank you for starting the final 10 weeks of Mary Hartman with me. We will see you tomorrow night in Fernwood.